Hello and welcome back to Ecosystem Project Demo. This is your host Pooja Ranjan, and today I'm excited to explore a public good project which after about a year of development has made it to the mainnet release recently. Yes, this is one of the most discussed project in the Ethereum ecosystem, Ethereum Follow Protocol. This is a decentralized social graph designed to work with Ethereum accounts. To talk more about the project, we have the pleasure of speaking with brantly.eth, the lead developer at EFP. Brantly is also the co-author of ERC 4361, Sign In with Ethereum, and he is a former ENS co-dev, worked very closely with the DAO. Brantly, welcome to the show.
Very good. Hello. Thank you very much. So just to make something clear, actually, I am not a developer. I am the creator and team lead of EFP. And I did lead the ENS core team for a couple of years, but I was not a developer for ENS. Just wanted to make that clear to people.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think I would love to begin this conversation with a quick introduction. So maybe if you can let us know more about yourself, how you entered into Ethereum ecosystem, your involvement with the ENS and SIWE, and how you got involved with Ethereum Follow Protocol.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I first heard about Bitcoin, I remember back in like May of maybe spring of 2013. Kind of followed, that was like a bull market year, followed that kind of more from the sidelines. And then, then it was very early 2015 when I had sort of like my conversion moment for like crypto for at the time was just Bitcoin. When I realized like, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. This is going to change the world. And since that time, it's been a full-time passion since that time. So then, yeah, then I remember summer 2015, Ethereum launched, of course. I didn't really get it at first. And then in early 2016, see, back then people were saying, oh, we don't need Ethereum, we have Rootstock. And that, of course, went nowhere. And then in early 2016, there was the DAO. And that was actually what got me to first start using Ethereum. So like I got like my first Ether and like so I could get involved in the DAO. And of course, the DAO blew up, that was very exciting. Yeah, then kind of as the year went, that kind of brought me into the ecosystem. I was following things really exciting to me. I remember in mid to late 2016 hearing about ENS, which ended up being a very important thing in my career and my journey in this, like from posts from Nick Johnson on Reddit. See, back in the day, Reddit was where it was at for the Ethereum community. There was no crypto Twitter back then. And then, yeah, Ethereum launched 2017. 2018, I was involved in some like smaller projects, nothing major. One thing I did was in mid 2017, I had a website called flippening.watch, which tracked the metrics between Ethereum and Bitcoin on 6 metrics, like turned green when Ethereum flipped into Bitcoin. And at one point, I believe it was in June or July 2017, 5 of the 6 metrics, Ethereum had passed Bitcoin. The only remaining one was market cap, and it got 85% of the way there. Like, wow, a lot of people don't remember or don't know that it got very close. The flipping came very close. It didn't happen, though. It became the floppening. And then I joined the ENS core team January 2019. I actually joined as developer relations, but within about a year, things got shuffled around, and I became director of operations, like leading the team with Nick. And yeah, really exciting times. This was a time of a lot of growth for ENS. Among many things, we launched the token in the DAO during that time, which was a huge deal in late 2021. And then I left ENS under dramatic circumstances in February 2022. But I've still been involved in the DAO since then. I'm one of the leading delegates in the DAO. I used to be one of the directors of the ENS Foundation. I actually resigned from that just about a year ago. And I'm also on the ENS DAO Security Council. So there's a 4 of 8 multi-sig that basically can veto anything. This is like a protection against governance attacks. So I'm very involved still there. But that brings me to my new project, Ethereum Follow Protocol, that you mentioned. Oh, I forgot to mention, Sign with Ethereum. So back in 2021, 2022, I had the idea for Sign with Ethereum. I worked with like Nick and Vitalik and the Ethereum Foundation. And then we ultimately hired another company, Spruce ID, to kind of standardize that. And I'm one of the co-authors of that EIP. Anyway, so then it comes to Ethereum Follow Protocol, which we just launched like a week and a half ago. And I think things have gone very well. Yeah, the vision there, it really goes back to 2021. So it actually even goes back to what ENS is. So ENS originally was designed by Nick, like at the very, very, very beginning, to be a naming system for Swarm-based websites. If anybody remembers Swarm. And then that evolved into, well, no, it can be for payments for Ethereum accounts, like naming Ethereum accounts. And then in early 2021, I realized, wait, actually what ENS is, it's your Web3 username and profile. And so we kind of reconfigured the thinking around that. And I realized, wait, ENS is just like one element of this like Ethereum identity stack, and we need the other elements. And then sign with Ethereum was meant to be another element. And even back in 2021, though, I was like, you know what? Another element we need is we need a social graph protocol for Ethereum accounts to complement ENS and sign with Ethereum. Flash forward to 2023, nobody had done it the way that I thought it should be done. So I started working on EFP. And then here we are a year and a half later, and it launched. There's a summary.
That's beautiful summary. And I'm really excited to meet you again because the history that you have shared about yourself getting involved with Ethereum is pre-Ethereum era. So you have kind of like seen Ethereum getting birth and growing all along, and you have been supporting with multiple things, including making proposals which help Ethereum go forward. That's
Absolutely.
awesome. All right. Coming back to today's topic, EFP, let's start with the basic of it. Ethereum Follow Protocol. It is a decentralized on-chain social graph protocol for Ethereum accounts. Could you please share for those who aren't very familiar with it, what is EFP and what problem is it solving in the Ethereum ecosystem?
Absolutely. Okay, so first I'll say what it's not, because a lot of people get confused about this. EFP is not a Twitter clone. It is not a social media network thing. It's not meant to be that. It's actually more basic than that. It's meant to be a basic like protocol primitive that is designed to be easily combined with other identity primitives in the Ethereum ecosystem, like ENS signed with Ethereum and others as well. And it's meant to be then used in other apps. So we do have a web app, which I can show off here in a little bit. It's meant to be used in other apps. And yes, it could be used to be a component of a Twitter clone. But I actually personally think that's like the least interesting use case. I think it's much, so to me, here's my view on it. Like we already have Twitter. Twitter already exists. It's not going anywhere. And yes, eventually I think crypto and blockchain will be used to like maybe have a Twitter competitor, but I think it's actually much more interesting to bring these types of elements like a social graph to things we're already doing in crypto to augment them in unique ways that no one's ever done before. So I actually think the most useful use case for a social graph in crypto is to provide more context for who an Ethereum account is. And here's an example to explain what I mean. Let's say I'm on Twitter and I see my notifications. Vitalik has followed me. Vitalik.eth followed me on Twitter. Wow, amazing. I'm finally getting the credit, the acknowledgement I deserve. I have to be careful how I tweet now. Like Vitalik's gonna see it. Okay, I gotta be careful, right? And so then I click on Vitalik in my notifications. It goes to his profile and wait, hold on a second. He only follows 10 people and none of the people I follow him. What does it mean? It means it's fake Vitalik. What tipped me off to it? It was the fact that that account, despite looking like Vitalik, it didn't fit in the web of social relationships that would prove that it's Vitalik. So I tell people is I can get even an ENS name that looks similar to someone else's ENS name. I can follow lots of people. I could get a lot of fake bots to follow me, but here's something I cannot fake no matter what. I cannot fake getting other real known people to follow me. That is like social validation for the cypherpunks out there. There's this whole idea of web of trust. We can do that with EFP. So for example, let's say I'm on an app and I want to, let's say I'm on an NFT marketplace. So there's one called Vision that is already integrated EFP, and somebody owns an NFT that I want. Well, I'm going to track down this person who are that. We've all done this, and you like try to triangulate things like what's their ENS name, what other NFTs do they know, what other activity have they done to figure out who they are. Well, if you can see do I follow this person already? Do they follow me? Do my friends follow them? Things like that. That gives me a lot more information about who they are and what their connections are to like figure out who that person is. So I actually think that is the most interesting use case for EFP.
Pretty interesting. And as you just said, that EFP isn't a Twitter clone, so there is definitely no posting, but we can get to know about following and followers. I have personally experienced a lot of fake account and like people asking questions and follow. These creates confusion, and I believe that the project may be helpful for, especially for newcomers who are new and trying to differentiate between the fake and the real one could be useful. What would you say is the underlying Ethereum standard being used for development of this protocol?
Yeah, so a key thing to understand for EFP is that there are no Ethereum Follow Protocol accounts. They don't exist. We just use Ethereum accounts. If you have an Ethereum account, wow, you're already on EFP. Congratulations. People can follow you. Even if you've never heard of EFP, people can follow you because there's following Ethereum accounts. So there's that. And then, of course, all of our profile data that you see like on our website is just ENS data. So again, if you have an ENS name and profile set up, that is already showing up on our website and any other place that supports that. The key thing is you don't have to create an EFP account, and there is no EFP username you need to claim, and there is no EFP profile that you need to set up. You already have those with other things. EFP is just providing the complementary social graph component.
That is pretty interesting. I'm a little bit curious to dive a little bit deeper on it. Could you talk us how does EFP work at a technical level? I don't want you to go too much deep into it, but on a high level, what are the key components for it?
Absolutely. So, ENS has played a very key role in my life and career. And so it's maybe no surprise to people that EFP is designed very similar to ENS. ENS has been very successful and has worked well. And so on a high level architecture, there's actually a lot of similarities. So the basic thing is that if you want to start following people on EFP, you mint an NFT that represents your list, and each NFT has like a number, just goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, just goes up sequentially. And then there's a record attached to that NFT, which is called list storage location, where you basically say, here is where I'm going to store my list records. And that, by the way, the list minting right now, the NFT minting is happening on Base in Ethereum L2. Also, this is an important thing to understand. When I say the word Ethereum, I mean Ethereum L1 plus its L2s. That to me, what the word Ethereum means. If I want to say Ethereum L1, I'll say Ethereum L1. But Ethereum to me is now a broader concept, just to make that clear to people as I speak. So that is on Base. And then when you pick a list storage location, that list storage location is going to be a smart contract on a particular chain. It could be a smart contract on Base, so you stay within Base, but it could also be a smart contract on OP mainnet or on Ethereum L1. Those are the other ones we support right now. We hope to expand support to many other L2s in the future. So you specify that, then you go to that location, that smart contract on that chain, and you store what we call list operations. List operations there's 4 types: follow, unfollow, tag, untag. So essentially you can follow an Ethereum account and then you can optionally tag them with any arbitrary tags you want. And who you follow ultimately is you take all the list ops of that person and then you run a script to basically run through the history to see what the current state is. So for example, if I follow you, then I unfollow you. The current state is that I unfollow you, right? I'm not following you. So that's kind of how it works on a basic level. We do have like a block button and a mute button. What that really is on a technical level is you follow the person and then you add the tag block, and that's interpreted in our system as you're blocking them. Same thing for mute. We also have another standard tag called top 8. So if people remember back in the MySpace days, you'd have all your friends, but you specified your top 8 friends that were featured on your profile. We also have that, and that works by just you follow them and then you add the tag top 8, and then they show up in that section of the website. Yeah, so that's how it works on a broader level.
I'm curious why top 8, why not top 10?
It's just a little bit more exclusive. I mean, so top 8 is that's coming from MySpace. So MySpace had the top 8. So we're just copying that.
Got it. So as we understand, the core aspect of EFP is decentralizing the social graph. Why do you think decentralizing social interaction and following are so critical in Web3? And how do you think that EFP will be able to support this and will keep the information safe?
So EFP, I'd say it's not just like decentralized, it's all the data is on chain. And this is crucial for a number of reasons. So it means that the user is totally in control. Like unless these chains disappear, and I don't expect them to disappear, the data is robust. It's very hard for the data to disappear. The user is in control because it just works with smart contracts, and the user has access to updating their data in those smart contracts. So it's total user control. And it's public, which means that any system, any app can make use of this data if they want to without permissions, period, end of story. Now, some people will say, well, all your follows and blocks and all this stuff, well, it's public, and that's true. I would say privacy on blockchains is a hard problem that we've talked about a long time, but no one's really totally solved yet. So yes, it is public. However, I actually see this as a positive because it means that everything you do on EFP, it's like it's a form of social signaling. So rather than like having to privately block someone, well, I don't know, you publicly blocked them. That kind of like says something, it's kind of more oomph to it. Now, the trade-off to doing things on chain is that it does cost something to put it on chain. That said, I would say L2s really do work and they are way, way, way cheaper and the costs are negligible. Plus, I would say the fact that there is a little tiny cost to doing it kind of makes that follow just a little bit more special, because it costs the person something to do it.
This is very interesting concept, and I'm loving it as much as I'm listening about it. And now I understand like why it was making such a big buzz here.
Yeah.
All right. As we are discussing, this is about users. It's about adoption and getting into Web3 world. I understand user experience, especially in Web3 application, sometimes may lag behind the centralized counterparts. We do have Twitter, we do have other social counterparts for this. But as you mentioned, this is not just about Ethereum, it is about L1 plus L2. We learned that it was conceived about a year and a half, and there were multiple testnets supporting Base and Optimism, Sepolia testnet before the launch. So, taking
Yes.
everything into consideration, how is EFP addressing user experience challenges, particularly in making it easier for people to follow, connect, and engage with the decentralized social environment?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the reasons we chose Base, I mean, look, Base is super cheap, obviously. But they have that Coinbase connection, and Coinbase can onboard a lot of users to Base very, very easily. I mean, I gotta say, if you want to get Ether on Base, that's easy to do. So that's one thing. And we could have done it on Ethereum L1, but it's just super, super expensive, obviously. So that was one thing we did. And then I would say, we've spent a lot of time on our designs. So although EFP is, as I've said, is in a sense like a primitive utility that other apps can use, absolutely. That said, we've spent a lot of time on trying to make our web app, our kind of manager app, as easy and kind of fun to use as possible to kind of get people using it so they can start managing it. We have a lot of room to grow and improve. One example is, if you follow people, you store it on chain. Obviously, if you had to do an on-chain transaction every time you followed somebody, that would be extremely terrible user experience. So we have taken an analogy of like a checkout process where we even have like a shopping cart. And so when you follow people, you're actually adding them to your cart. And then you go to your cart and you check out all at once. So on Base, we actually allow for you to do up to 1,000 list operations per transaction. So as long as you're doing fewer than 1,000 actions, it's just one transaction altogether. If you're doing more than 1,000, then it takes more than one. That's a rare occurrence. So yeah, user experience is very important, obviously. I will say this. We had kind of like a policy on our team that we wanted to design our web app such that there are no tutorials or guides or wizards needed. So we did talk like, should we make a wizard or a tutorial? And we're like, let's not waste our time doing that. Let's just try to make it as intuitive as possible. I will say we're very pleased that we've had thousands of people use it, offering almost no support on how to do it, and they've all done it successfully. So I think that has been some success there.
That would definitely be called as success. I was reading some online research reports on this project, and they were very much optimistic. And
There were research reports on EFP?
yeah, I read
Really?
one. Yeah, I will share the link with you
Yeah, I didn't
later
know.
on.
Okay, cool. People are writing research reports on EFP. I didn't know that. Thank you to whoever wrote that.
Right. You did mention that the base chain allows to go up to thousands of like putting things into cart and go for one transactions. I believe this will not only just make the cost very cheap, but also like increase the interest to do a lot more activity in one transaction. That's pretty interesting.
Yes. And by the way, shout out to Jesse Polak, Jesse.xyz, who just got massive promotion at Coinbase.
Promotion.
He has been a supporter of EFP. I've been very happy. He was involved in our testnet. He was also an early user once we launched, and he's tweeted about it. So thanks to him for that.
Yes, many thanks to him. So let's talk a little bit more about EFP in mainstream adoption. You did mention about EFP being integrated project name as Vision. So have there been more projects, or are you aware of these projects who are actually involved or have shown interest to integrate this protocol natively?
Yeah, so we have 13 integrations so far. And so big thanks to those apps. They're listed on our website. I mean, I think at least a couple of them did like right away, like the day we launched. We're very appreciative of that. More are in the works, and of course, for EFP to be successful, we need to be in not just dozens of apps, but hundreds, thousands. I mean, this is going to be a major, major task of ours to get, integrate. It's like the Steve Ballmer video when he said developers, right? The way I think about that, it's like integrations. That's what we need to do. So big thanks to those people. If listeners want to integrate EFP, you go to our docs. We have a public API. So where you can easily get EFP data. Let me just say a word about how our API works. You might say, hey, I thought it's decentralized. Why do you need an API? Well, let me explain. EFP is entirely on chain, 100%. All data is on chain. It's public. You do not need to talk to us or go through us to get the data. And in fact, we've designed EFP so that if you want to know who does brantly.eth follow, you want to get that information, you can just do a contract call, you get all of the list ops, you run like a very simple script, basically make the history run, find out who do they currently follow. Very easy to do. However, if you want to know who follows brantly.eth, okay, that's a more complicated question. Now, it is all public, it's on chain, you can figure out, but to answer that question, you have to have global knowledge, because the only way to find out is you have to know who does everybody follow, and then pull out who follows brantly.eth. Now, that is not reasonable to do by just like, hey, let me just like check the chain real quick. I mean, you could, but it's gonna be hard to do. It's not practical, particularly for a web app. So we have created something that we call the EFP Indexer. It is a program that watches the chains for events and basically copies all the data into a database, manipulates in various ways, and then we have an API that serves up that data very, very quickly with caching and everything like this. Now, all of that is open source. It's on our GitHub. If anybody else wants to spin up their own indexer, they can, their own API, they can do it. Or if they want to, of course, they can just ping our API. Essentially, we created our indexer and API for our own web app. It is what we are using, and then it's just also open if other people also want to use it.
Very interesting. I would love to have that link shared. You mentioned about the public API. We can perhaps add it in description for people who would want to integrate
Absolutely.
it.
I think it's just docs.ethfollow.xyz/API, something like that. But yeah, I can get it for you.
Perfect. Thank you. So, Brantly, you have been associated with ENS. ENS is one of the most popular DAO, and I believe like you had a lot of conversation about governance. So let's talk a little bit about governance for EFP. So how are you thinking about the protocol governance structure? Is it already out? If it is, what it looks like? And how do you see community play a role in this? How people can get involved?
Yes, I have thought a lot about on-chain governance, and I will say, I'm proud to say that I actually think the ENS DAO is the most successful DAO out there. I mean, I'll say this, I think there's an argument for it. It governs real things as real treasury, not just its own token, but Ether. It has real power over certain things in the protocol. It has a robust set of delegates and a community around it. I actually think it's been very, very, very successful. Proud to have been involved in the creation of that and continuing to be involved in it. Regarding EFP, yeah, so look, we have a page on our docs called multi-sig. So there is a multi-sig, and we just describe exactly what the powers of the multi-sig are over the protocol right now. The main powers are basically it can like pause and unpause contracts. Just because we launched and we're like, well, if there's something really bad, we want to be able to like pause it so people don't like waste their money or something like this on a contract that we've already realized has a bug. These are powers that, if appropriate in the future, obviously we can burn very easily. That's the main thing. There's a few other powers that are mentioned on that page in the docs. So I would say the best governance is governance that doesn't exist. So in an ideal scenario, we get EFP robust enough that we feel confident where even the few powers that we have held to a multi-sig, that we just burn them and that's it. Great, no governance needed. The best governance is no governance. If we did do any other kind of like, DAO or something like this, maybe in the future, and that would only be if we thought there were elements of the protocol that could not be easily automated or burned, that they require some sort of human judgment on an ongoing basis. This would be like years in the future if EFP is successful, and if we still think there are things like that, maybe we would consider something like that. But I'd say it's not anytime soon, and it may not never happen, because like I said, our goal is actually no governance is needed, but we'll see.
Very interesting thought. And I am sure that this has just started. As we go on, we'll get to know more about it and more involvement. But I like your idea of best governance is no governance. Nobody's
Yeah,
get
I mean,
involved
look, I'll
deep
tell
into it.
people, yeah, having a DAO is kind of a pain. It's a lot of work. And in ENS's case, there are a couple things in the protocol that just do require human judgment. Like, what should the pricing be? Because you could hard code pricing, but like, are you certain that 20 years from now you're going to be happy with that pricing? Probably not. Like, you need some sort of like judgment over it. So and then also like, okay, it makes money. So then what do you do with the money, and who says and what you do with it? So I think that requires human judgment. So there are a few things. I will say I've been a big believer, and I've been an outspoken person in the ENS DAO of saying, let's try to keep the scope of the ENS DAO as limited to those things where we need a DAO as possible, because sometimes DAOs just get bigger and bigger and bigger, doing more and more things they don't need to do, and just kind of becomes unwieldy monster. I kind of try to fight against that. So absolutely, it's the best governance is no governance.
Perfect. All right. As we understand, like EFP has just started. We have the mainnet launch recently. It may be a little early to ask this question, but I'm sure, like me, there are many other who are curious to learn more about it. What does the long-term roadmap for EFP look like? Are there any key milestones we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, I mean, we have tons of new features we want to expand to. There's also new like list record types that we've talked about that we want to do. So for example, right now we call it subscriptions, where so right now, if I want to follow people, I follow them. And also tagging, by the way, I want to highlight tagging is a big critical part of the protocol. You can do all sorts of interesting things. You can do arbitrary tags. But let's say that I've seen who you're following, and I think, hey, that's a really good list of people to follow. Right now, I have to now recreate that list on my own list records, which is fine, but it's sort of like wasted storage and like gas and things like this. So we have this idea of a record that we call subscriptions, where I could say, I follow everybody who you follow with a certain tag. And I just do one record, and then the social graph just automatically treats it, interprets all that for you. That could be really, really valuable. Another record type pad is, let's say I have a CryptoPunk. So let's say I want to follow every Ethereum account that owns a CryptoPunk. Well, that's kind of a hard thing to do because there's thousands of them, but also they get bought and sold around all the time. So I could manually try to like keep an updated list, but that's like not practical. An idea we've had is you have one record that just says, I follow whoever owns one of the NFTs in this collection. And then again, from the social graph interpretation of that, it's just everything's updated automatically. I think that could be really powerful. A lot of NFT communities have said, oh, they wish that there was something like that. I think that'd be great. I will mention here, so if you guys can see my screen, if you go to our GitHub, we have a project board that's public that shows what we are currently working on, what our backlog is, like other big projects. So we're very open. Project board's open. All of our code is open source. So there you go.
Thank you for sharing this. This was my next question. Where can people follow, and how interested contributors may reach out to the team? I believe I will share this link, and this would be helpful for the community.
I mean, when I say use EFP, we have a Discord. We actually just created a forum last night that has basically no posts on it, but we do have a forum.eth.xyz. That's a place if you had, longer comments or questions Obviously, we're on Twitter and we're on GitHub. People can, raise issues there or submit pull requests. And so there's lots of opportunities. And then should I maybe do a quick demo of the app? Is that something you want to do?
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. So this is in collaboration with Interface, which is a great app. Highly recommend. Basically, if you follow people on EFP, their on-chain activity automatically shows up in this feed. And I gotta say, guys, first of all, I'm getting so much alpha from this feed. It's incredible. Like learning what people are doing and things like this. I will also say people are doing way more on chain than you think. Like there is tons of activity that I didn't even know people were doing. I didn't even know about that NFT or that app or things like this. And it's like I followed 131 people, and it's kind of like casually seeing this as like I load up our website or something like this. And it's incredible to see what people are doing on chain. I just wanted to show that. All right, we have latest followers here. This is the last couple of people to follow me. I can kind of page through this and see who they are. Recent activity. This is just like people who've either done following or have been followed recently. You can kind of page through here. This is my profile card. I'll explain more of that in a second. You can scroll down, learn more about EFP, see our integrations. Let me go to my profile here. So you can see who I am following, who is following me. You can see my top 8. These are the people that I put my top 8. Really solid top 8. I challenge everybody to make a better top 8 than that. You can't. These are solid people. So I want to talk about our profile card here real quick too, because everything you see here, other than the EFP data, this is all EFP data here, but everything else comes from ENS. So this is my ENS primary name. This is my avatar for my ENS profile, header, bio, website, my Twitter, GitHub, Telegram, Discord. And I set this up in ENS, and then it just automatically is populated here. And you can see here we have this edit profile button, and it just takes you to the ENS app to edit your profile. There's other things here. Here, I'm gonna follow some people though. I'm gonna follow some people. You'll notice here it's kind of like trying to be fun. It's this like flying thing. If you unfollow somebody, it's sad. Oh, if you can see that it's like crying faces. I'm not gonna unfollow Greg. Greg, don't worry. Okay, so notice here that they have this green dot, and they go up here on the cart, which has a green dot with the number. These are like the number of things in my cart. And I could like follow more people if I wanted to. I can go to my cart, and there they are. There's also recommended here of other people I could consider following. I'm gonna follow some people here. This looks cool. Let's say maybe I changed my mind. I don't want to follow those people. Okay, so I've got these people. I can also tag them here if I want. I could tag, in real life or BFF or based or something. And here it's telling me the number of transactions that I should expect to have to do. So I'm going to do confirm. You'll see here it's going to do it on base because that's where I'm storing my list records. And it's taking me to my wallets here. Oh, hold on a second. Transaction pending. Successful. Of course, it's an L2. It's right away. No indexing list data. It's just kind of getting our systems next and complete. And now if I go here, it's just reloading with my stuff. My number of followers has gone up. And I should be able to search here. I think I followed Banteg, right? Oh, that's not working. Something went wrong there. What happened there? Okay, well, there are problems with our website, but it mostly works. So you can see like Jesse's profile here. You can see Evan Moyer's profile. See Vitalik's profile. Vitalik has not followed anybody yet, but he has 874 followers. So he has a lot of followers here. We also have a leaderboard. You can see some stats up here, number of addresses that touch EFP in any way. This is the number of lists that have been created. This is the number of list operations that have been done so far. So over 100,000 last week. I think that's pretty good. This is the number of unique list minters. So we have, about 2,600 users so far, which I think is pretty good for the first week. And then we have these different categories that people are ranked by. Melly.eth right now has the most mutuals. That means she follows somebody and they follow her back. So yeah, there we go.
This is very interesting. Thank you for sharing. I am like getting more and more involved into this world. Hopefully, I'll go and check it out and maybe create an account.
You can see there are there are bugs in our app that we need to fix. There's always something breaking or fixing, but we're working on
It's Web3. We'll get there.
it. Indeed.
Yeah, I know mostly we know about NFT activities that are done, and there we use ENS name to get those things. But there are a lot more activities, and it's good that we now have a tool to keep a track of and have some fun around.
Yes.
So, Brently, you are involved with ENS and obviously with SIWE. So, we can see both of them getting integrated in EFP. People assume that EFP will also be recorded as Ethereum standard as an EIP, but that doesn't seem like a case here. I'm curious, was there anything to stop it, or is there any plan and having a standard for Ethereum?
It's a good question. I thought about it. So way back in April of 2023, a year and a half ago, I published a Twitter blog post, you could say, proposing Ethereum Follow Protocol, basically saying, hey guys, here's an idea. I want feedback and got feedback on it. And that led to what we're doing now. In that, I said that our plan was to create EIP standards for it. We haven't done that. And the reason we haven't done it is because I've actually changed my mind about the need for that. I think EIPs are way overused. EIPs should be things that are like improvements literally to the Ethereum protocol itself, or some sort of like basic standard for the ecosystem, and not just like here's an app, like a standard app or something like this. So ENS did have EIPs because it was a very early thing, and that's kind of what people were doing. ENS has actually since stopped using EIPs for improvements to itself. Instead, it now has its own system called ENS IPs. So it's created its own standards thing, and now it does that. It doesn't use EIPs anymore because it doesn't really seem to make sense. Yeah, so signing with Ethereum is an EIP. The reason for that is that seems like a very, very basic standard. It's not like an app. It's actually just a standard message. And so it made sense to do that. So I guess all this is to say is I just haven't felt like it's needed for EFP. Instead, I think what matters for EFP is not did I write it up as an EIP standard, but instead, does it get adoption? Do people use it? And then if EFP itself may create its own EFP IP standard process to improve itself. So that's my thinking about it.
This is good. I mean, we don't want a standard for one project only. We want a standard when it is for multiple projects. And
Exactly.
I understand the public API here may be able to help implementers to get this thing implemented in their respective projects. So it's all good.
Yeah, and we still have docs that have specified how everything works and everything. So it's not like, oh, we didn't write it down. We have it written down. We just didn't submit it to the EIP GitHub. So I just don't think it's necessary.
And I believe having EFP IP would offload some of the EIP editor's job.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah,
would be
I
managed by
support making their
project.
jobs. Yeah, I support making their jobs easier because again, I think there's way too many EIPs. We need to like cut down on EIPs.
I would be happy to get lesser proposals which are stronger and which are actually something like creating a standards and not just one application based standard. So
Are you an
that's it.
EIP editor?
I do run EIP editing office hour, and Ethereum cat herders support EIP editors to kind of get involved. Then a lot of activity related to EIP and EIP editing.
Incredible. Yeah. So yeah, there is a lot of things that just should not be submitted. Yeah.
Yes, we recently launched a website called EIPInsight, in which we are trying to keep a track of how many pull requests are coming in every month, how many of them are being addressed by reviewer, and how many stays back, and increasing the backlog of editors. So they have interesting chart. People can take a look. And if anyone is here open to support us in reviewing and making this number go down, I'll be very happy to have him in. Him or her inside.
Absolutely.
All right. I believe success of any project depends upon its adoption. We did talk briefly about adoption, and you also mentioned about partnership with Coinbase because Coinbase can onboard many users. Are there
Yes.
any other upcoming partnership or integration that you may want to share with us?
Yes. I mean, well, I'll say there are many in the works. I would say they will be shared when they happen. So no need to say something if it like, well, it hasn't quite happened yet or something. But yeah, I mean, it's like a major thing we're going to be doing. And yeah, I mean, I'd say there's sort of like two metrics for success for us, which are just the two sides of any app, which is like users and integrations for at least for not just an app, but like a protocol. So we need users. So we're watching our stats. You can see at the top of the leaderboard page, we have those stats. We also have a Duna analytics page that's linked to in our docs that has a much more granular look at what's happening with EFP on chain. So that's something we're watching very carefully. And then the other side is integrations, places to use EFP. So right now we have 13, which I think is pretty good for having only been around for a week. But like I said earlier, we need like not only just dozens, but hundreds, thousands, a huge number. So another thing I will say is that EFP, we got almost all of our funding from the ENS DAO. So about a year ago, we got a $50,000 grant from their ecosystem working group. And then they had another program called Service Provider Streaming Program, where there was a whole vote thing last fall. It was very intense. And we ended up getting what we requested, which was $500,000 a year over 18 months, so $750,000 total. There's 9 service providers. We also got a $50,000 grant from the Maths Network. That's been all of our funding so far. Anyway, I say this, that the ENS DAO Service Providers Program lasts 18 months. So there's about a year left. What I've told people is, if at the end of 18 months, if EFP does not have traction, then I feel like we're done. Like, we tried, we don't need more funding. We gave it a good try, but it's really kind of a waste of time to keep working on it, because I think a year and a half is plenty of time to see, is there traction for your app? And as a side comment, I will say, look, you and I have both been in crypto a long time. There have been and are a lot of projects that, like, people work on them for years. They don't really go anywhere, and they keep making the conference circuit. And to me, that's okay for a time. Like, you're trying, there's a huge respect for trying. But if after a while, like, your thing doesn't work, like, to me, it's like sort of like you need to move on or like start a new project or something. I think it's fine. There's a lot of like zombie projects that have like unlimited, tons of money, and they have no users, and it's going on years and years. I think it's kind of silly. I'll say, I don't want to live my life that way. To me, I only want to work on it if it's like working. So if at the end of, the 18 months, if we don't have traction, I feel like we're done. If it does have traction, then great. Let's get more money. Let's expand the team. Let's keep going. So that is how I think about it. And the biggest way I will be judging traction is, use of the protocol by users and integration. So we've got to get those up massively.
And what is the best place for people or project interested to get in partnership with EFP?
I mean, they could just DM me on Twitter. I mean, look, they can integrate EFP, of course, with our API or without our API, however they want, without even talking to us. But if you want us to know about it and put you on our website and to maybe tweet it out or something like that, then just DM me on Twitter or something.
That's perfect. And we will share the Twitter handle. Obviously, it's brantly.eth, but we will share the Twitter handle and other details in description of this podcast. Brantly, while I have you, I have a question which is slightly unrelated to this particular project, but it is related with respect to ERC 4361, sign in with Ethereum. Currently, that EIP or ERC is in review status. What can we do for you or for the team that we can see this proposal into final status?
It's a good question. We need to get it totally across the finish line, obviously. So I've proposed that back in like mid 2021. There was like I had like a Twitter thread on it, like went viral, and people were excited about it. They're like, we need to standardize it. And it ended up being kind of an effort of the Ethereum Foundation and ENS combined. And we ended up hiring a company called Spruce ID to kind of like lead that effort. And I was connected to them, and Nick was, and so we're also co-authors of the IP. And anyway, I think we gave them funding to do it, and then that's kind of run its course. So I think we kind of need to find a way to like revitalize that part to get the sign with Ethereum EIP across the finish line, and also just to kind of get more people working on it. I've had this vision, if anybody's listening, if they want to help out with this, I've had this vision of maybe if I could get some grant funding or something like this, and creating a separate organization that's just doing sign with Ethereum, call it the Sign with Ethereum Foundation or something, I don't know. And to get like a small team of people that just focus exclusively on that. So we need to get the EIP across the finish line. There's tons of other work with libraries and other compatibility things with like other systems that would make a sign with Ethereum way easier to implement. There's tons of work there. So something I want to say on sign with Ethereum is true of often many things in crypto. The problem is not that we don't know what to do, is that there's actually too much work and there's not like the people or the funding to do it. That's actually the problem here. So there's all that work to do. And then just like with EFP, sign with Ethereum, big thing is integrations. So like you can have a standard, but if no one's using it, it doesn't matter. Sign with Ethereum does have some really big integrations. So for example, MetaMask, if you go to an app that uses that standard, because it's a standard message format, it can recognize that you're not just signing a message, you're signing a sign with Ethereum message. And so it actually shows in the UI of MetaMask as sign in requests, not just signing requests, but sign in requests, so that you know what you're signing is just doing sign in with Ethereum. That is super great. Rainbow Wallet also has support for it. Many other wallets and some other apps are using it. But we need like way more integrations of sign in with Ethereum on the app side, on the wallet side. And then the biggest thing for sign in with Ethereum with integrations is we need a non-crypto app to offer it as an authentication option. A lot of people don't know that sign with Ethereum, you don't have to be a crypto app. It could be a non-crypto app. It's just another way of doing authentication. That's it. So I've had this vision of like maybe raising some money, creating another organization, hiring a small team, and then just having like being full steam ahead on getting sign with Ethereum, bigger adoption. We'll see.
That would be wonderful to see. And this is the first time I'm hearing about someone imagining it to be adopted by a Web2 project. I think now most of the projects are getting into Web3. It's important that we share this notion that SIWE is not only for crypto, it can be used anywhere. But I think mostly project who understands blockchain would be more inclined towards getting it adopted.
Of course.
However, as from the process point of view, I feel like the proposal has already been implemented in many successful projects. So this is ready to be moved to the last call, which would be for 14 days and move to the final status. What is needed and required, perhaps we can request it to any of the co-authors of the proposal, is just make a small pull request to move into the last call status. And from there, it can be moved towards final status in less than a month, just a few check-ins, and it could be moved forward.
Okay, great. Yeah, that sounds good.
And for listeners, we have recorded an episode with the Spruce ID team that is EIPInsight episode number 61 to explain what EIP 4361 is all about, how it can be integrated in your project. So please do check out EIPInsight episode 61 on EIP 4361.
Great, yeah.
Thank you so much, Brantly, for giving us a deep dive into Ethereum Follow Protocol. It's clear that decentralized social networks are the next frontier, and it's exciting to see protocol EFP leading the way. Before we sign off, where can listeners learn more about EFP and keep up with its progress?
Yep, go to ethfollow.xyz, so ethfollow.xyz, that's our website. If anybody out there happens to be the owner of EFP.com, please be willing to sell it to us at a reasonable price. We can't spend $150,000 on the domain. We could spend something like maybe a tenth of that or something like that. So if anybody's listening and is that person, that is what we'd be using it for, because I've reached out through like domain acquisition services. Anyway, right now our website is ethfollow.xyz. Go there. And then of course it'd say we're on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. I mean, that's where all of our updates are.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that with us. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. You may find projects detail in the description. Be sure to follow Cat Herders for more updates on latest projects in Ethereum ecosystem. Until next time, stay decentralized.